Have you ever walked into a room and felt like people decided who you were before you even open your mouth? Maybe it was your age, the way you dress, your accent, the school you attended, or simply the way you look. I've experienced this before and it's an experience I'll never forget. Hi there, I'm Fola. Welcome to my channel where I talk about career growth, leadership, and personal development. A few years back, I got a job at the mall, right? Just like every other person, I didn't know anyone and they didn't know me as well. Unknown to me, behind the scenes, some of my colleagues had already formed an opinion about me. I later found out some of them had looked at me and concluded that she's just a pretty face. To them, I was just someone who got the job because of how I looked rather than what I could contribute. This was particularly funny because I had zero idea of what was going on. And maybe that was a good thing because they were making assumptions, I was making observations. So on the very first day, I started paying attention to my environment as I usually would. I knew that if I was going to get more sales, I had to make the place visually appealing. From my years of experience, I noticed that people usually buy with their eyes first before they speak to anyone. They would have already formed an opinion based on what they see. So I started making small changes. I rearranged the display, paid attention to the presentation. I focused on making that section that I was managing look more inviting. Because if something could be better, why not make it better? There was an obvious turnaround with how the display looked, how the merchandise looked, how the shop generally looked. There was more coordination, more synergy, more combinations. Then about a month later, something happened that stayed with me ever since. One of my colleagues walked up to me and said, "Fola, I owe you an apology." I looked at him confused and said, "How? You don't owe me an apology, we barely even speak." He smiled and said, "When you joined us, many of us spoke amongst ourselves. We said, this one can't do much, she's just a pretty face. But after seeing what you've done here, the transformation you've brought to the department, I realized we were wrong and I owe you an apology and well done." To be honest, I was surprised and in shock, not because of the apology, but because I didn't even know I was being judged in the first place. That taught me that people would always have opinions. Sometimes they've even made up their minds about you before you even get a chance to introduce yourself. And here's the truth, you can't control people's assumptions, but you can control your contributions. You can control the value you bring. You can control your attitude. You can control your work ethic. One of the biggest mistakes we make is spending too much time trying to prove ourselves to people, trying to convince them we are capable, trying to change their minds. The response usually should not be an argument, it should be excellence. Being excellent at your job has a way it changes conversation without you even saying a word. Your work starts speaking for you, your results start introducing you before you even enter the room. And that's exactly what happened in my case. I didn't know people were watching, I wasn't trying to impress anyone, I was just focused on doing my job well. So if you're watching this today and you feel underestimated, maybe because people think you're too young or too quiet or inexperienced, or maybe because they simply judge you based on how you look, don't let that distract you. Focus on adding so much value that people have no choice but to rethink their assumptions. Invest your energy in being undeniable. So if you have ever been underestimated and later proved people wrong, I would love to hear your story in the comments. And if you love conversations about career growth, leadership, and personal development, don't forget to subscribe and like this video. I'll see you in the next video.